You read the title. In this video, I, the Charismatic Traveler, am going to show you the entire process on how you can avoid paying council tax as a university student in the UK. And before we go any further, this is a follow-up to our video on student perks and discounts, which explains more details about what council tax is and how it functions. You can check it out right here.
Part 1. Understanding council tax.
As explained in this previous video, you can think of council tax as a property-based tax rather than say an income tax. What this means is that it's not applied directly to you, but rather to the residence you're living in. So each time you move to a new property, a new council tax will automatically be applied and you'll receive a letter like this that explains how much you need to pay, when, how, etc. Students have the option to apply for exemption, which basically means that they won't have to pay for anything council tax related during their studies. Generally in the UK, the exemption or discounts are always offered to some categories of people. Single-person households, disabled people, some other special cases, and of course, students. But the best way to be sure what you're entitled to is always to double-check on the website of your local council. For students at the University of Stirling, you will be able to apply for the exemption, but only if you're in fact a full-time student. The criteria to qualify as a full-time student is that your course must be provided by a recognized university or college, require attendance for at least 24 weeks in the academic year, and involve at least 21 hours of study, classes, or work experience a week. This is important to know because part-time students unfortunately won't qualify for this criteria and won't be able to receive the exemption. Though you might still be able to apply for a discount based on your current circumstances, but this is something you will have to research with your tax office directly.
Part 2. Flat sharing scenarios.
Now, we understand that to obtain exemption, we need to be both a full-time student and to be able to prove it. This is why many first-year or master students who live in university accommodation won't even have to worry about applying for exemption, since it will automatically be applied by the university itself. However, from the moment you move to a private flat, you'll need to inform your local tax office yourself. In most cases, you'll be registered by your local landlord or letting agency, but they won't be able to prove your student status themselves. That's something you'll have to do directly if you want to obtain the exemption. Before I show you how, another crucial thing to keep in mind is that the full exemption can only be applied to households composed only of students.
For example, if you move in a private flat with some friends and you're all full-time students, then your entire flat or household is eligible for the exemption. But if one adult in the household isn't a student, while the rest of you are, you won't get the exemption but could qualify for a 25% discount. Finally, there's a third scenario where there are more than one adult in the household who aren't students. In that case, neither the exemption nor the discount will be available to you.
It's important to be aware of these different scenarios and, depending on the situation, clarify this with your flatmates to decide who is or isn't liable to pay the tax.
Part 3. Applying for exemption.
Now that you're aware of all the important information, let's go through the process itself. And before we get started, just be aware that you'll need some documentation in hand to complete your application. These include your tenancy details, your contact details, and most importantly, your student details. You'll need to provide your student number, and this is optional but recommended, a certificate of enrollment. You can get that document when you have access to your student portal by scrolling down to the enrollment section and requesting one directly to be sent to your email as a PDF file. Once you have everything in hand, let's get into it. Head over to the Stirling Council website, go to the Council Tax section, then go to the Exemption tab. Scroll down and click on Apply, where you can begin your application. You'll need to fill basic personal details, but most of these are optional. The important bits are to fill in your address, to confirm that you're indeed a full-time student, your tenancy details, and finally, if you're not alone in the flat, in which case you'll have to complete the same process for every additional person. So make sure all of your future flatmates have their info ready on hand. Once that's done, you can submit your application and you'll then be emailed soon after with a response. And from then onwards, you won't have to worry about this council tax headache ever again, at least until you change flats. So that's it for today, folks. I hope this guide was clear and informative. If you want to thank me, remember to like, share, and subscribe. And before we leave, I should also mention as a disclaimer that Go.see Stirling is not associated in any way with the University of Stirling or the Stirling Council. All the information I've given here should be accurate at the time this video was made. Just always make sure to do your research yourself to avoid any mishaps. I was your host, the Charismatic Traveler, and I'll see you in the next video.